A Mandarin-speaking Chinese millionaire sat in the hotel lobby, surrounded by silent tension, and not a single person could reach him. Manager Richard Cole made sure the maid, Denise Carter, stayed invisible, certain she had nothing to offer. But fate had given her a skill no one expected, and the courage to use it when the moment came. Just wait until you hear how one bold choice turned the tables and why justice, in the end, came out on top. The Grand Avalon Hotel was the kind of place where even the air smelled expensive, a faint blend of polished oak, fresh flowers, and something that felt like money. Tall marble columns reached toward a chandelier dripping with crystal, scattering light in 100 tiny shards across the lobby floor. The faint notes of a live piano drifted from the corner, each one perfectly in place, like everything else here. But beneath all that elegance, there was something heavier, a quiet strain, like everyone was holding their breath. At the heart of the room sat Mr. Lang. He didn't need to speak to command attention, his presence alone anchored the space. A charcoal gray suit, tailored with ruthless precision, framed his lean figure. A silver tie pin caught the light each time he shifted. His posture was straight but relaxed, the kind of ease that only comes from knowing you're the most powerful person in the room. In his hands, a sleek black phone. He scrolled slowly, deliberately, his thumb moving in measured arcs. It wasn't idle browsing, it was the kind of scrolling that told you he was thinking about something important. On either side, two assistants stood like silent bookends. Both were dressed in understated designer suits, eyes in constant motion, sweeping the lobby, checking the entrances, scanning anyone who came too close. There was no aggression in their gaze, but it was clear, this man is not to be approached lightly. A few had tried. The wealthy owner of a chain of restaurants, a city councilman in an expensively casual blazer, even a well-known art dealer whose name alone opened doors. They had all approached Mr. Lang with warm smiles and extended hands, and each time the exchange was short. A polite nod, a couple of clipped words, and then silence so thick it felt like a wall. The truth was simple. No one here could hold a conversation in Mandarin, and Mr. Lang wasn't about to waste his time on clumsy, half-understood English. Near the front desk, Richard Cole, the hotel's general manager, watched it all with a kind of restless discomfort. He kept tugging at his tie, smoothing his suit jacket, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. To him, this moment was both an opportunity and a problem. A VIP like Mr. Lang was a rare guest, but so far no one could connect with him. And in hospitality, failure to connect was failure, period. Across the polished lobby floor, Denise Carter moved quietly along the far wall, pushing her housekeeping cart. The soft squeak of the cart's wheels was barely audible under the piano's melody. She wore the standard navy and white maid's uniform, starched, clean, but intentionally unremarkable. Her dark hair was pulled back into a bun, and her eyes stayed down as she passed the marble columns. She had worked here long enough to master the art of being unnoticed. To Richard, she wasn't Denise. She wasn't even a person in this moment. She was just staff. Just part of the scenery, like a lamp or a vase. She remembered his words from months ago, delivered with a polite but dismissive smile. Around VIPs, Denise, the best thing you can do is stay invisible. And so she had. Most days it didn't bother her, but today something was different. As she passed near the lounge, her eyes flicked, just for a second, toward the man in the charcoal suit. She caught a detail no one else seemed to notice. The faint slump in his shoulders, the slight furrow in his brow, the way his fingers lingered on the phone screen without moving, as if he were debating a decision. It wasn't the look of a man who felt untouchable. It was the look of a man carrying something heavy. Before she could think more about it, Richard's voice cut sharply through the air. "Don't loiter, Denise. This isn't your business." His tone wasn't loud, but it was the kind that left no room for argument, low, clipped, and meant to put her back in her place. She gave a small nod, pushing the cart forward again, but her gaze, quick, careful, almost stolen, lingered on Mr. Lang for just a heat longer. And in that heartbeat, she felt something unexpected. Not curiosity, not admiration, but recognition.
Denise had always carried a quiet love for languages, not just the words themselves, but the music in them. Years ago, before life had pushed her into survival mode, she'd spent her evenings in a small classroom above a bookstore, learning Mandarin. She remembered tracing the characters on thin paper, listening to the instructor's voice rise and fall with the tones, and feeling as if she were learning a song written in a different alphabet. She had been good at it, not fluent, not yet, but passionate. Then reality knocked harder than any dream could withstand. Her mother's illness, medical bills that stacked like bricks, the extra shifts that ate up her evenings until there were no evenings left. One by one, the things she loved fell away. The Mandarin books went into a box in her closet. The night classes became a memory. And eventually, she found herself here, pushing a housekeeping cart in a hotel where no one knew or cared what she was capable of. Most people assumed she hadn't gone to college, that she'd never had bigger ambitions than changing linens and scrubbing mirrors. Denise never corrected them. Explaining herself felt pointless in a place where uniforms turned you invisible. She was polishing the brass railing by the lobby stairs when the voices drifted over. Not English, Mandarin. Her hand froze mid-polish as her mind caught the words. Mr. Liang was speaking to one of his assistants, his tone tight, his sentences clipped. She picked up fragments. Frustration about a meeting that had been missed. Annoyance at the hotel's inability to coordinate. Urgency about reaching a local business partner before the day was over. Denise's pulse quickened. She understood every word, perfectly. She told herself to keep working, to keep her head down, to remember Richard's warning. But as she watched, the assistant lowered his phone and shook his head, muttering something about delays and miscommunication. His shoulders slumped, the posture of someone who'd run into a wall too many times in one day. Something inside her tightened. I could fix this, she thought. Not in theory. She knew exactly how to bridge the gap that had every other person in this lobby tied in knots. Her mind started a tug-of-war. Stay in your lane, Denise. Help them, you can. It's not your place. If not now, when? The decision came like a quiet click in her chest. She set down the polishing cloth and walked toward Richard, who was still hovering by the reception desk. I think I can help, she said, steady but not loud. He turned, eyes narrowing as if she just interrupted a private thought. What, you're gonna grab a translation app? His smirk was practiced. Go clean room 512. Something in her face didn't change, but inside, the moment hardened. She didn't argue, she didn't even answer. She simply stepped past him. Mr. Liang's assistants noticed her first. One of them shifted forward, ready to wave her away, but she didn't slow. When she stopped at the edge of the table, she met Mr. Liang's eyes, calm, unshaken, and spoke. 您好，梁先生，请问您需要我帮您联系当地的伙伴吗? Mr. Liang, would you like me to help you contact your local partner? The sound of fluent Mandarin cut through the polished quiet of the lobby like the clear note of a bell. The moment the words left Denise's mouth, it was as if someone had drawn back a curtain in the room. Mr. Liang's head lifted sharply, his eyes locking on hers. For a heartbeat, they were narrowed in surprise, measuring her, trying to place her in a context that made sense. Then, slowly, the edge softened into something else. Curiosity. 你会说中文? You speak Chinese? The corners of Denise's mouth lifted into a calm, assured smile. 我学了好几年，可以帮您沟通. I studied for years. I can help you communicate. The assistants exchanged quick glances. Their posture shifted, no longer subtly guarding Mr. Liang from interruption. In that instant, she was no longer just a hotel maid with a cart. She was someone with access to a world they had assumed was closed to everyone here. Richard, still a few steps away, froze mid-breath. He had heard those tones before, not from Denise, but from high-paid interpreters flown in for corporate events. Mr. Liang gestured toward the chair across from him. Sit. It wasn't an order, but an invitation. Denise sat, pulling a notepad from the inside pocket of her uniform, a habit she'd kept from her night classes. Within moments, she had the local business contact on speakerphone, her voice steady and precise as she bridged the conversation. She listened intently, responding with flawless intonation, her tone shifting naturally, warm when clarifying details, firm when negotiating points. Every phrase landed clean, without hesitation.
And something unexpected began to happen. The tension that had hung in the lobby all afternoon began to melt. Mr. Liang leaned forward, engaged. His assistant stopped scanning the room and started taking notes. Even the front desk clerk, who had been pretending to arrange brochures, was now openly listening. 5 minutes in, the conversation had turned from frustration to progress. 10 minutes later, a verbal agreement was reached. The meeting would be rescheduled, documents exchanged, and the investment talks back on track. Mr. Liang leaned back in his chair, exhaling with quiet satisfaction. He studied Denise for a long moment, then switched to English so the room could hear. "You've been the most helpful person I've met here all week." The words carried weight, not just because of who spoke them, but because of how they landed. A millionaire, in the middle of a deal, had just publicly acknowledged the value of someone most people in this lobby hadn't noticed until now. Richard stood still, his face pale. He didn't move, didn't speak. Around them, the guests who had been watching from the periphery began murmuring to each other, their glances at Denise now edged with something new. Not pity, not dismissal, but recognition. For the first time that day, she was not invisible. The sun had slipped below the skyline by the time Denise finished her last room. The hotel lobby was quieter now, the buzz of the afternoon replaced by the softer hum of evening conversations and the clink of silverware from the restaurant. She was wheeling her cart back toward the service elevator when she heard a voice behind her. "Miss Carter." She turned. Mr. Liang was standing a few feet away, no assistants this time, just him. The same composed expression, but now touched with something warmer. "I would like you to join me for dinner," he said simply. For a moment, Denise hesitated, the reflex to decline rising automatically after years of staying invisible. But something in his tone left no room for doubt. This was not a casual offer. This was recognition. She left the cart with a coworker and followed him into the hotel's private dining room. The space was softly lit, the table set for two. They spoke quietly over the meal, no hurried small talk, no awkward pauses. Mr. Liang told her that what impressed him most wasn't just her Mandarin, but the fact that she had stepped forward when an entire room of people, some far more powerful on paper, had stayed silent. "When others hesitate," he said, "opportunity disappears. You didn't hesitate." When dinner ended, he reached into his jacket and handed her a sleek, ivory-colored business card. "If you ever want a new job," he said, meeting her eyes, "call me." Denise slipped the card into her pocket, feeling its weight as more than just paper. On her way back to the service corridor, she passed Richard. He avoided her gaze for a moment, then muttered, "Guess you've got some hidden talents." The words were meant to be neutral, maybe even begrudging praise, but they didn't matter. She didn't need his approval. She had already earned the respect of the most important man in the building, and more importantly, she had earned back her own. As she pushed her cart toward the supply room, the wheels rolling softly over the carpet, Denise thought about how quickly people draw conclusions, from a uniform, from skin color, from a job title printed on a badge. Tonight, she had rewritten that narrative. And in this version of the story, she wasn't a background character. She was the one who changed the ending. She was the hero.